Grace and peace. My name's Ryan, and I'm the movie pastor. That means I use my movie pass to watch movies, and then I interact with them as a pastor would. I think theologically about what's going on and what the messages that these movies are sending is. I watched a horror movie this time. I rode my bike there, which is why I look like this. It's Fantasy Island. And Fantasy Island says a couple of different things. I really see three different things that it's saying, one after another. So it starts off and it kind of presents you with this idea of, hey, this is going to be a be careful what you wish for movie. We see a lot of be careful what you wish for movies. The Monkey's Paw was maybe the most famous literary example of it, and we've got all sorts of cinematic versions of the Monkey's Paw. And when we make a be careful what you wish for story, what it's really saying is that most of our desires, most of our hopes and dreams are built around selfishness. They're built around what I would call sinfulness, the desires of the flesh, and those things ultimately don't fulfill, and in fact, they ultimately destroy. So we start with that premise, with that idea in the movie, and I think they're going to explore it, and they don't. They kind of rush that, actually. Which now, I try really hard not to be a movie critic. A critic is not an artist. I'm trying to reflect on the movie. So that makes me ask the question: why are they rushing that, right? Why is it that when they have the two bros who want to party with models all day, and they're going to make that descend into violence, as it often does in these sorts of stories because it represents this timeless theological truth, they don't let it descend into violence, and they just kind of bring violence into it? Well, it's because they're saying something else. And so they get into message number 2. And message number 2 has to do with reality and belief. What is real and what makes a thing real? All of these visitors, these guests of the island, are experiencing things that they don't believe in. They are on an island and they think that whatever goes on the island is fake. And so in order for the island to do its work on them, it has to convince them that it's real. That is another really interesting kind of theological premise. We talk about Christians as believers, as people who believe. And so one of the ideas that has to do with faith that we start to engage with is, to what extent does believing something make it real to you? And that's not just a fluffy excuse for non-rational thinking, although it has been used as that. It also has real psychological merit. If something happens to you and you don't believe it, it doesn't have the same effect that it otherwise would. And if you believe something is happening to you and it's not, it does have some of those effects. So if we're talking about something like freeing people from regret, the belief is that regret is a disease and we need to eradicate it. Well, then it requires belief. It requires proving to people that the stakes are actually real. And how do we go about doing that? Surprisingly to me, that plot was also dropped, and it went into a third direction. And the third direction has to do with tying up loose ends, so that all of the different characters in the movie, the host of the island, all of the different guests, including one guest who was brought in as a part of someone else's fantasy, were all connected, and they all managed to have their fantasies fulfilled, tying things up together in a neat little bow. That's a pretty interesting concept for a movie. I see why they would have shot for that. But it's one thing to say something because it's cool to prove you can do it. And it's another thing to say something because you want to say it, because you think it's true, because you think it accesses some idea that we would have a hard time getting our mind around unless we had an analogy and a fiction to engage that idea with. It seems to me that Fantasy Island was doing the first thing. They were trying to do something because it was cool, because it would look good in a movie and it would make them seem like they knew what they were doing. Again, I'm not trying to be a critic, but that idea didn't seem fully fleshed out to me. But it is an interesting idea, and we can still talk about it. That idea that what is the potentiality for a win-win? What is the potentiality that I, by trying to fulfill my fantasies, can help you fulfill yours, and someone else can help me fulfill mine, and all of us can help each other, and we can all get what we need, even if what we need sometimes results in not full unmitigated victory, right? So maybe I need to die and sacrifice myself and be a hero. Is there such a thing as a win-win? Can we all get what we all want? In a lot of ways, that is the opposite of the plot we started with, the be careful what you wish for plot. That says, wish boldly, wish well, and we can all, by our wishing, work it all out. Well, as a pastor and someone who thinks about the messages of scriptures and about Christian theology, that's an interesting message, but it's a message that I ultimately am going to have to disagree with. I think that if we're each going for what we wish for, unless we each surrender our wishes and wish for a greater thing, wish for the will of God, then all of our wishes are going to contradict one another's, and we're never going to tie it up in a neat bow. All of us are going to want things that other people have, and we're going to come head to head at each other. There was a little piece of that in I don't remember the characters' names, but the blonde character using her wish to wish for something that would resolve the plot, that would get them off the island and stop the villain. And maybe if we all did that, right? Or maybe even if just enough of us turned in our wishes, and instead of fulfilling some private fantasy, instead of fulfilling wanting to get back with our husband, we wanted to solve problems, we could see more win-win solutions for a greater number of people. Am I stretching? What do you think? I've got the likies and the commenties, and I'd love to hear from you. So remember, especially subscribing is really helpful for YouTube's algorithm. So if you could do that, it'd help the channel a lot. And I've got some other videos you might want to watch. Thanks.
And when in scenes of glory I sing the